Yeah, I'm Jackson. I have zero experience with carpentry.
I studied at a school for historic preservation in Boston and learned about how things were built, 250 years ago.
There's a long way to go. I'm nowhere near the top. Not that I thought I was, but there's so much more to do out there.
Welcome back to the Passion for Craft podcast. We are here hoping to save craft in America. We are hoping to do that through a little bit of questions that we pose, and then we're going to answer them from the perspective of an apprentice, journeyman, and master builder out there. So hop in today with the question. I'm going to have Brent read the question because it's a little nuanced and a little complicated, but we hope to break it down and kind of get in the intricacies of becoming a builder.
Well, it's really, the question is, how do you make money as a craftsman? Okay. And specifically, how do you make money as a craftsman desiring to do high craft in a culture which doesn't appreciate craft? And so, I'll get on comments on my videos that kind of no one's doing what we do, right? How can you even do that? Or they'd love to be doing what we're doing. And so, what is realistic for making money today? And if you're just starting out and you're like, yeah, I want to pursue that, how do you do it? It seems to me there's a number of different avenues to do it, but I guess to boil down the question is how do you make money doing craft in a culture that doesn't really care?
I'm going to write that down just for later when I
when you
inevitably forget that. So
that's kind of the question. What does that strike you as?
So for me, if the scenario is the people around you don't respect what you're doing, or maybe not respect isn't the right word, maybe they don't appreciate it, then the best thing to do would be to educate those people on why they should appreciate it, or maybe why, because ultimately making money is making a living. So, we all get up and go to work, and, we all expect to be paid for the work that we do. So as a craftsman, a craftsperson, if you find yourself in this world that's like, well, I'm trying to push in this direction, but people don't want to pay for that. Like I see what these guys over here at Hull are doing. I'm telling my clients about that. They just don't get it. What do I do? Well, the problem is they just don't get it, and they need to be educated on why beautifully crafted things are important, and that you can go down a whole list of stuff with that. I mean, one of the things that you're always speaking about is longevity. Like, why would I choose, this over that option? Because this one, okay, let me explain it to you. So for you to educate them, you're going to have to be educated in it. And it's going to be something you have to take seriously. One other thing, especially the day and age we're living in, you can showcase all your craft on social media. So take advantage of that. Like show people like I've had so many customers in this DFW area who were going to do like a wainscot in their dining room or something. And they went to YouTube and said how to do it. My video popped up and they said, oh, this guy's in DFW. I'm seeing how he's doing it now. I could never do that. I'm going to call him. I've had countless people that have hired me from seeing my stuff out there. So if you're struggling, like, man, people just don't understand what I can do. Are you showing them what you're capable of?
Yeah.
Because then they appreciate it. Well, I heard this one quote. This guy said, you can't really create more time. We all have the same 24-hour day, but what you can do is add more value to your time. So they saw me and they were like, man, I'm seeing what he's doing and how valuable it is. So when I give them a bid, hey, this room of wainscot is going to be $3,000. They're like, well, I see everything that went into it. Right. I appreciate it. When can you start?
So this quick question came from a comment from one of my videos, a kid in Ontario who had said, putting trim in, and, I'd love to do more trim like what you're doing. How do I do that? And how do I educate my client? He goes, I'm finding myself having to go back to tile work because I keep doing the same thing over and over. It's just a 1x4. It's just boring.
Oh, no.
And so it was just, what does that person do? And I think you've touched on 3 or 4 of the real key things. You have to educate yourself, right? And educating yourself is a broad understanding of what's out there and what the opportunities are. You can't tell your client, hey, I want to do this until you've done that. And and you can't say, hey, this really turned out great until it's turned out great. And so there is a experience level that, the downside of Instagram is you you see something, you go, yeah, I could do that. You never done it. But you look at it and you go, that can't be too hard. And so it's almost a
Are you saying that's a bad thing? Because part of me hears that and go, that's a good thing, right? That people see something.
It's good and bad. I was contrasting that. It's on one side, being able to show what you've done is a good thing.
Yeah.
On the other side, there are people that look at that and go, yeah, I could do that. And never have. And so it's
double-edged sword.
Double-edged sword. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. I would maybe push back on this a little bit, and I would say that craft. So the question is, how do you make money in a culture where craft doesn't matter? It's interesting because if we're talking craft in the form of like crafting things and craftsmanship, does that apply to like the people on Etsy? Does that apply to all this, or does it apply specifically to home building and like the trades and building, buildsmanship, if you will, or does it apply to anything that you're putting effort and time towards? Because if it's anything, I don't think craft is truly lost. I think there are areas where we have lost interest in craft and have started like putting favor towards other things, because for as many chains of fast food restaurants that are in a town, there are equally as many great restaurants that are, serving high quality food in that town. In the same way, there are a lot of production builders out there. There are a few that are doing great, but when you look at consumer base, right, the amount of people that are pursuing those high quality foods, the amount of people that are pursuing those high quality homes, that's a lot fewer, because the fast foods, the production builders, they reach a lot more people than the other. And so, I think there's a lie underlying in this question where I think craft exists. I think people care about craft, but there's a lie where it's like, I can't spend the amount of money to justify what I'm going to get out of this craft.
Well, I think it's hidden too. Like you talk about these tacos that you like, and I've never heard of that place. What was the name again?
Mellys Taqueria.
Yeah, like
it's a taco truck.
How many are
it's
there?
Tiny.
It's
There's
a taco
one,
truck.
Yeah.
So it's one specialty food place, whereas McDonald's is like every corner.
Totally.
They're everywhere. So I think a lot of the people, if you said, hey, blind taste tests, here's the Mellys taco place, here's McDonald's, like which one's better? I know they're not both burgers or whatever.
Yeah, let's say Taco Bell.
But yeah, Taco Bell. What I'm saying is like they're going to pick that place, Mellys. They know it's there. They just don't know it exists.
Right.
Because I know I went like a huge part of my career, I would say a decade, without knowing even about the stuff that you guys are doing. Like I just didn't know. I didn't even know it existed. It was like a whole nother world. So when presented with that, people have a decision to make. They can say like, wow, that's really cool. Or they can say, I'm fine with, the McDonald's.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot that plays into that, but I think it's just hidden.
Yeah.
Like it's a hidden gem of the craftsmanship.
Well, here's I keep thinking about what I want people to understand and learn. I want to encourage the person out there who is thinking about starting a business, or this guy in Ontario who wanted to raise the bar in his area. And how do you do that?
Yeah.
One, I think there's some clear steps. First of all, you've got to practice in a number of different areas. Okay. And so let's just say you're starting out, and I don't want to chase this rabbit too far, but let's just say you're starting out and it's friends and family first, right? Hey, Joe's, he's going to start doing carpentry. He's always been good at carpentry. He's going to start that thing. And so friends and family say, yeah, well, have him come build me a deck and I can fix the fence, right? And so he's corralled himself into a area of work that he's going to be doing decks and fences, right? But how does he, build he's going to have to step out of that arena.
Yeah.
He's going to have to go work for some home builders, and those home builders may be production builders to start.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to, in order to make money, he's going to have to be very fast. And he's not going to have to worry. He's not going to be able to worry as much about how tight his joints are, but he's got to be fast. And then he gets tired of that world. He goes over to custom build world, and he says, these guys care more about quality. I get to put more moldings in, more trim in. They still care about speed, but I've learned speed. Okay, and
Well,
so
you're getting less reps that way, right? You're doing less. More like in a production build house, you are cutting, 5,000 times a day versus a custom one.
But the production one, you'd be doing less molding, smaller moldings,
Right,
less. And custom one, you conceivably doing more built-up crowns and things like that.
Right.
My point is that I don't want the guy to be discouraged when he's still in the friends and family plan, thinking, how do I encourage craft? How do I build really great things? When you just haven't seen enough, you haven't done enough, you haven't experienced enough. The thing that I challenged you when we first met was, I was pointing at Richard, why are you doing this? Why are you working for these people and these customers and these things? And it was a challenge to get out of that world and come to our world, come to see the do stuff we're doing. And I think it's made you a more happy craftsman. Sometimes we get stuck. And I think one of the first challenges of making money in this thing is to not get stuck in a rut.
Richard, how was your magic carpet ride to the whole new world that Brent showed you?
When you don't see like the value in what you're doing, it can actually become depressing. And you said like stuck in a rut. I feel like I was probably right there. I feel like when we met, it was kind of like a perfect storm.
Yeah.
Where I was really close to just being like, I kind of want to do something else. Like I like have maxed this out. It's kind of boring.
Yeah.
Like I've kind of mastered this production side of it.
Yeah.
It's just like, what really more is there to do? And then when I came to that class, that first building and brew thing, I stepped into this exact room and I was like, oh, there's a lot more to do. I'm like looking at these paneled walls and all this stuff, and I'm like, oh, I was a big fish in a little pond.
Yeah.
But it was cool because I realized I was a big fish in a little pond, and it made me like want to jump to the next bigger body of water.
Yeah.
Where I'm not such a big fish, but there's a lot more growing to do. So yeah, it definitely like lit a fire in me when I started seeing this stuff. And from my position, I would say I was always pushing towards the direction of craft, and I have my own business now for 10 years. And as far as like making money as a craftsman, I was able to do it, without doing super high quality things. It was just, I always saw that there was something better though.
Yeah.
Like even starting off, I remember looking at molding catalogs and being like, man, we're always putting this base in. Like, look at this base. And it's still like an MDF piece, but it's bigger. It just looked cooler. I've always had like an interest in the next thing. So I think a lot of people are in that position of that. Was that one of your comments?
Yeah, I mean, I found that as well. Is that I remember the Stair Guy when we brought out a custom stair to one of his jobs, and he looked at all the parts that we brought out, and he's like, "What am I supposed to even do with this?" And he'd been doing custom stairs stairs for 10 years, and by the time we showed him and he put all those pieces together, he's like, I want to do another one. This is the greatest thing I've ever done. And
adult puzzles.
Yeah, it was breaking out of a rut that he was in. That again, I want this to be an encouraging thing for craftsmen who are out there, like the guy in Ontario who was stuck in a rut, like you. That maybe we're thinking about doing something else. That to me is a huge tragedy for our craft. The guys who hit a wall and go, I've done it. I've kind of And what you've done is you've done your little circle of influence and you've kind of maybe rule there. You're the top dog there, but you don't understand. I mean, one of the things that has grown my business and allowed us to know as much as we know is we worked in the commercial and the residential field. Working on commercial jobs has taught me so much about being a better builder. Schedules alone, the way they run a job, watching them manage people, watching them manage schedule, watching them manage budget. You learn so much stuff. And then the different kinds of work that you do on a commercial building versus a residential building, it's night and day. So you have to jump. I want people to get out of their, this guy in Ontario, I would say, okay, who are you working for now? Go talk to the NAHB, National Association of Home Builders. Go talk to NARI, National Association of Remodelers. Go talk to architects. Say, hey, is there any work that you need? Go expand your horizon. Go talk to designers. Hey, I'm really like to do this. Here's my book of things I can do, but I can do a lot more. And look, you might have to take the first job or two and you might learn a lesson. You might not make as much money as you normally make or whatever else, but you will start expanding and growing that world and becoming better as you open yourself up to more.
I think a reminder there is, just like anything, if you're starting out in something, if you are jumping ponds, right, you are restarting, right?
Yeah.
You are starting afresh. And so I know we've talked about this in episodes past, but when you are starting something, when you are beginning with something, it feels like, I'm not like good enough yet, or I'm not, and that can be discouraging in its own right. So to go from a state of discouragement, I'm not doing the things that I want to be doing, or that I want to be doing more, then to a state of I'm doing even less now. It might feel that way, but I think we've said,
one of the things I've wanted to set up in this Passion for Craft in our Patreon,
in our Discord,
in our Discord is some kind of metric, okay, that people can judge themselves against, right? So that you could, if you were able to take a test, looking at Richard, and that test was 100 questions, and you realized you only knew the answer to 20 of them, and there was 80 questions that you didn't know, you'd have been like, wait, what?
Yeah, be a shocking moment.
Yeah, because like you said, I was a big fish in a little pond.
Yeah.
You had mastered that world, right? And so you nailed those 20 questions, but you didn't realize there's 80 more that you had no idea what was going on. And not no idea, but
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Weren't experienced in. And so I feel like there's like, if I was just going to start listing them off, I think of Gary Katz, Katz Roadshow. He's a great carpenter, a great teacher, and a good friend. He tells me about how he started out doing apartments and having to be fast with apartments. And that was a piece of the 20 questions, maybe it's 10 questions that he, if you look at that 100 questions being your resume, being, getting towards being a master level, that you have to be able to answer all those questions. That's certainly a piece of it, working in apartments, working in high production, quick, got to get in, got to get out.
Yeah.
Efficiency. He learned how to be a better carpenter because he did that.
Yeah.
And so, production is one thing. Millwork is another thing. You've got that your garage with that new machine and you becoming more of a shopsmith, right? You're building doors now. You want to build a window. You're starting to build millwork, right? That's another 20 or 30 questions there of building those things and installing those things and understanding the nuances. And anyway, I would hope that there at some point could be a way that we could, a guy could check in and do a test and kind of go, yeah, okay, this is the world of carpentry. This is the world of craftsmanship. And I'm only in this bit of it and there's this much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point earlier too, is like when you jump ponds and you're starting out fresh again and everything's like, you might feel like a little insufficient or whatever, but at the same time, you also, it's exciting because you are like the Windows thing. You know, like to me, I've been like scratching my head thinking about this for a long time. Like, how am I actually going to do this? Like, I've been staring at your display and stuff, and I'm like, this is a lot harder than it's a,
yeah.
And I think that's the reason why people just, buy a window and throw it in because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's difficult if you don't know. And, you got to understand that if you're going to pass the test, that's going to be part of it.
Well, and that's the other thing. Like you said, people kind of just give in and they go, well, I'm just going to buy a window. That's how we get to the state of craft that we're in America today, right? Is we have people just go, hey, I want to like build my own home. I want to do the DIY project. I want to put in my work and my sweat equity, and they go out there and they go do it. And they're like, oh, well, this is a little harder than I anticipated. What's the easy way out? Well, let me just go to a Home Depot. Oh, they have a window that I just inset into my house. Great. I'm going to go do that, And that's where we lose it because everyone wants to do it themselves. And then when they do it, they want to take the easier way out, not recognizing that there is a craft behind this and there is a,
Well, it brings up a good point in relation to what we're talking about of like making money as a craftsman. You'll have people probably say this too, like, well, my clients, they know they can get a window for X amount of dollars. Why are they going to buy a 100-year window? Like you probably, not clients, I mean comments that say
Yeah.
that, like, how much is that window? Oh, it's this amount. Well, these people would never buy that. It's like, well, you don't know. You haven't educated them in your craft. When they see it, the functionality of it, the beauty of it, everything that went into it, the joints. And that's why I think that if you're going to make money as a modern day craftsman, people have been beat over the head with HGTV and quick and fast and easy. So you kind of have to like teach that out of them.
Yeah, totally. That's a great point.
So you got to say like, look, this isn't, Fixer Upper or whatever.
Let me tell you how
Not
this
that I
is
don't
really
like that show.
how this is really made.
Yeah.
Let me show you what all goes into it, right?
Well,
You're educating them.
There was a TV show that they did about you, and I was a PA for it, but it was very funny because there were rooms, and I think we've talked about it on the show
Lone Star
before.
Restoration History Channel.
Yeah, it was unfinished. There was like an unfinished room where it was like, this project took all season for something to happen, and they just doctored it at the end. I mean, they were filming, and I just vividly remember the paint is undry, and you're smelling fresh paint in a room that is like half done, and they're like, well, we'll just get a pan shot from here to here, and we'll hide the rest of that, and you're like looking at frames behind you, and you're looking at a plastered wall in front of you. Do you remember some of those days? I mean, like.
Yeah, it was discouraging
because I felt like you do such a true craft process where they came to us, they're like, all right, so the deadline that you got here is 6 weeks. How fast do you think you can do this? And it's like restoring a train or building a boat, and I mean it was bananas, and it felt ingenuine to me just knowing the kind of guy that he is, where he's like, we're not buying the cheapo stuff. We're not buying the knockoff product. We're buying the thing that has been crafted. We're getting the thing that is good and, has Craftsman morals behind it, I guess. And then we're in the show. It was a very cheap experience. It was a very lie of, everything. I mean, is that fair to say? I don't want to blast the show, but there were moments where things were like.
Well, I almost feel like we need to do a whole episode on reality TV.
Yeah,
because of my experience and because of the things that we heard and learned and everything else. It's
and the things we see on HGTV.
Yeah, there's a lot of lies out there, and the big stars are not, master craftsmen, and so, which I'm not saying they have to be. I'm just saying that. To your point, that the clients, we need to have them unlearn some of these things
because they're the experts. They in today's world, they
sure.
are looked upon as the experts.
Yes.
Whereas there are people like you who they don't know exist.
Well, I mean, the other thing I was going to say is that we were talking about what kind of business do you build?
Yeah.
People also, I want also people to realize that you are who you are. Okay. In other words, you might say to yourself let's say 2 years ago, you looked at yourself and you said, what do people say about me? Where do I stand? What kind of metrics are there for me to know whether I'm good or bad or anything else? I mean, you can look at your body of work and, know kind of where you stand. Now, it typically takes someone from the outside looking at that, but I'll often talk to people about their marketing and the way they're going to sell their business, the stories they're going to tell. And they oftentimes don't line up with who that person really is and what the kind of work they're really doing. And so you end up pigeonholing yourself, and pointing to Richard again, you ended up pigeonholing yourself into that world where you were working for homeowners, you were building and painting, installing, those were turnkey jobs. I mean, that was a weird little niche. And I was so amazed.
Really
I was
weird.
so amazed that you had built such a business doing that. I was like, you did what? I really was shocked.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Can you speak to what you did a little bit just to fill me in? Because this seems cool.
Yeah, so what I would do is I would basically have someone say, hey, we want to do this thing, and they would show me a picture of something. Or the builder did this crown in this area, but they didn't do it over here. Can you finish it out?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we would come in. They would show us a picture of Pinterest, make us this accent wall. We've done tons of those.
Yeah.
And we would come in and do it turnkey. So I'd buy the materials, do all the installation, do all the prepping, all the painting, touch-ups. Like, we walk out, it looks like it's always been there.
Got it.
So, I'm making these videos showing all this stuff. I don't know. Like, I'm just like doing what I do. The
Yeah.
guy that I worked for before did the same thing, so that's kind of all I ever knew. He
Is
didn't
this
work.
the nail filler guy?
Yeah, the guy that hired
Yeah.
me to do the nail filling. They were turnkey too, so I was like, I mean, I guess that's what we do.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was like just carpenters. Like
So
I know that sounds
what does
crazy.
turnkey mean? What does that mean?
Turnkey is like you like
Start to
usually-
finish. You do
Yeah.
everything.
Like
Cool.
usually, like
You don't have to call anybody else. He does everything.
Yeah, and like a lot, like what we do for Brent's company now is we just do carpentry,
Yeah,
and the painters paint it.
but you didn't
So-
know carpenters existed.
No,
I
I
didn't.
didn't know that. Like you weren't supposed to paint.
Yeah.
People were telling me in the comments a lot, like put the brush down. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, why? I don't get it. You know,
That is so interesting.
really weird. Yeah, it's a really weird
So
place.
it's a weird. It was a weird place, and it was a homeowner only. You know, he never worked for builders. You know, that turnkey piece of it, and the projects he was doing, right? And it's just like I was like looking at him, going, I didn't even know that world existed, right?
and I didn't know you were.
Yeah,
in your
isn't that fascinating?
That is weird,
That,
yeah.
that I was looking at Richard going, okay, stop. Okay. And so I saw the value that, you know, when we first started talking, I didn't know he was going to come work for us and
Right.
start doing stuff. And so it ended up working out great. And so I wasn't telling him, you got to quit doing that because
You were looking.
because I was looking for something. I was
He
just
was
saying,
headhunting me.
Yeah,
No, I'm just kidding.
he was. He
I
had
was,
your number.
I was just like,
Longtime subscriber.
I could tell that he was passionate, right? I'd tell that he cared and that he wanted to do it right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to help him get there. And so my thing was, you got to go talk to builders.
Yeah,
Didn't I give you a long list of builders?
I've talked to a couple of them. Bettis was one of them.
Yeah.
Bill, I've talked to Bill, and like I've done a couple of things for him even, and like
Yeah.
it was just a whole different experience. My first experience was working with you guys, but yeah, I was just like, this
So-
is cool.
so-
I
but
don't
I
have
was
to
also
paint.
I was also telling him he could make more money too.
I really do. I mean, I like painting. Like,
Yeah.
like I do like being
That's
able.
not the favored part.
Well, it's back to like being a competent, like on the way to a master. Like
Yeah.
I like the fact that I can talk finishes. Guy wants to talk paint. Well, I can hold a conversation. I can talk primers. I can talk sanders.
Yeah.
Like I'm into it. But it is nice to just focus on the carpentry and let those guys do that
yeah,
part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were telling me, you know, you're like, how much are you charging? I say X amount. And he's like you're
What are you
you're
doing?
cheating yourself. Yeah, you should be charging X amount. You know, like you, or at least try to charge X amount. And if you have a guy working for you, that's worth X amount. And it's like, really? Like
Yeah.
this is crazy. And so I was logistically running jobs, installing, painting stuff, and I was not like making nearly as much as I should have. I was
Yeah.
just doing like for me. I was just happy to be like, cool, I have a business.
Totally.
Like, you know, I didn't want to lose the jobs. I came from like a scarcity
Yeah.
mentality, and I was just like, I just want the jobs. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care. As long as I'm making money a little bit, I'm fine.
And this is something that's so funny, but I think is a common trend among entrepreneurs in general. So we're talking about, you know, how do you make money in a culture? Know your worth. Know your value. And I think that lesson can only come from people who have previously not known their worth. Because, I mean, I'm hearing this about you, Richard, for the first time. I've known this about you where you've been, well, you know, I should probably charge this much. It's like, you're probably worth this much, you know? And so it's an interesting cycle, right? Where it's like,
and I don't think it's I think there has to be an initial know what you're worth so you can make money.
Yeah.
But there's also, even at my stage right now where I'm doing a lot of consulting, I still don't know what exactly I'm worth,
Yeah.
right? It's always a question you're going to be asking yourself. So it's an ongoing thing where you're going,
Yeah.
am I charging enough? Is this a value? And
it is a question of reflection too. Like you've got to look back on the body of work that you've done and the body of work that you have been a part of and go, I learned actually a lot in doing that. And now I am a better hire because of X, you know, old thing. And,
well, I mean, power, you know, information is power. Knowledge is power. The
time is money.
but you know, one of my other kind of keys for this, you know, session is find a mentor. You know, find someone who is older than you, who's been down the road, who you're friends with, who's in the same industry, who you can ask and, hey, tell me what you think. Kind of give me a critique of what's going on. That's always healthy at every level for me, for you, for anybody to find someone who can take you under his wing. There was a guy, Tom Clark, rest in peace, loved that man. He was the guy when I came back to Texas from Boston that took me under his wing and got me hooked up in a bunch of preservation jobs, commercial preservation jobs. The Grapevine Depot, then the Old Bedford School, and Hill County Courthouse. The Old Bedford School, I had a knockdown drag out with the contractor about trim, and they were trying to pressure me to do more stuff than I'd written into my contract. And I remember being on the phone with Tom, 4 or 5 times. Brent, do not give in. And he knew me. I just want people to get along, right? I just, I'm a nice guy. I don't want to be rude. I don't like conflict necessarily.
And on top of that, he wants you care about the millwork.
And so
he's like,
right. And so
I just wanted to be good. I
wanted to finish the job. And so, what Tom was saying is like, those efforts, you don't do that. You do, and don't you dare, Brent Hall, don't you dare stop, cave to these guys. And I remember it coming into a meeting where he knew he was counseling me, and it came to a meeting with the president of their company, and it came down to what are you going to do? And Tom told me this. He goes, you're going to sell it. I guess I'll see you in court. And I was like, I guess we'll see you in court. And the guy looked at me, and he settled, and he stood to my ground and to the contract and quit pressuring me, and we went on down the road.
Nice.
And one thing I learned is that the commercial world is completely different than the residential world. There was not it was not personal at all for this guy, because as soon as he said, okay, we got to figure out, hey, yeah, appreciate you doing, thanks for all you're doing here. I mean, it was almost like I thought he was going to, take me out back and, his gorillas are going to beat me up. And in fact, what he said was like, okay, is this be honest? Yeah. We good? Okay, good. Yeah. Okay. Well, I love the work that you're doing here. I'm really thankful. And that was the way the conversation ended. So having someone who can be in your court, who's got more experience, who can help you through that is part of this, building your resume, building, a board of directors, for lack of a better word, who can kind of help you, walk through that minefield.
Someone's going to hear this story and they're going to say, I'll see you in court, and they're going to go to court. And they're going to be staring down the barrel of $60,000.
This is not an endorsement, dude.
This is not financial advice. But no, I think that is great advice. I had a mentor tell me a long time ago, if you had the option, or if you had to choose between community and mentorship, you should take the mentorship 10 times out of 10.
What does that mean?
If you had to pick between having friends or having a mentor, you don't. And he was very clear in saying you do not have to make this choice. But if you did have to make the choice between having friends or having a mentor, your schedule is so busy that all you've got time for is spending time with a mentor. Take the mentor 10 times out of 10. And he would go on to say that was him saying how valuable mentorship is. But then on top of that, he said, get 3. Get 3 mentors, each a generation apart from each other, or each 10 years apart from each other, so far as you can, and get someone that you're mentoring. And I always thought it was just like such, okay, yeah, sure, information, like, get a mentor, find a mentor, and man, first time I got a mentor, I was like, this is awesome. It is such a cool thing to have.
Young guys need to realize that old guys like me
actually know stuff.
Well, no, have gotten to the point in our career, where, we've seen a lot, we've done a lot, and we just want to help people at this point. It's not about ego anymore. It's not about, proving anything to anybody. It's just, I've learned a lot. And if I had some humble kid come up to me and said, could you help me out? Like, of course you would do that. And so it's just, I'm saying that because if you're listening and you're a younger guy and you're like, well, where would I even find someone like that, in your church or through your school or wherever it is, but there are people out there that can and are willing to help you. I know that there's even one through there's a local government group that has a mentor program for small businesses. So, I mean, there's a lot of them out there if you look for them.
And even on jobs, like I'll be on jobs
for sure.
and there's other carpenters on site, the older guys. I see them doing stuff, and I'm like, I just go up to them and I'm like, hey, what is that? I've never seen that before. Never have they been like, oh, well, this is a secret. You know?
Yeah.
This is a trade secret.
It's actually top secret. So, unless you're a magician.
Yeah.
Sorry. No.
And those same guys I've had conversations with, and they have said, like, I kind of tell them about the world. What we just talked about, like that production side. And they're like, I've talked to several, and they're like, I'll never do that again. Like, if I can't think and use my mind, forget about it. Like, I've had like 2 guys in particular who've almost said they don't know each other. One's in Dallas, one's in Fort Worth. They said the exact same way I was feeling. They're like, if I can't use my brain on stuff, like I don't even want to mess with it because it just becomes so monotonous and like, yeah.
I think that's a great insight to the path of the craftsmanship because in that early stage of your career, you want to be able to perform those tasks and do those things and build those things, but you get tired. And when you flip over to the other side where you've got the skills and now you're just using your brain to take those skills and do more things, you're loving life, right? And that's why I think those guys maybe are so adamant about saying, never going back.
And that's very true. You need that first part of it because then you build these skills where like when you first start measuring something, you stretch a tape out, mark it, like you go to make a cut on miter saw, you're kind of like where is this actually gonna hit? Like to us now, that's just like this is second nature. Like I know, okay, my pencil's here, blade's going here, boom, 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 measured this, like the whole first part of my career was like dialing that in. All right, now that I got this weapon of skill, what can I shoot with it? What can I attack with it?
Yeah.
No, that's a great point. I mean, and it speaks to the path of the craftsman, right? That is the path of craftsmanship. And if you find yourself on that road and you're just doing the same thing over and over again repetitively, you possibly are bored. You possibly are disenchanted. You possibly are, frustrated by, the pace of things.
Yeah.
And, there are worlds out there that you can actually use your brain and build crazy stuff.
Right. I would say, and I don't know if this is right because I haven't done it for as long as you guys, but correct me if I'm wrong. Whenever you get to a point where you stop looking back at the thing that you've built and go, wow, I just built that. You probably can do an evaluation of whether or not
I agree with
you
that.
should be
That's a
doing
good point.
the same thing, because I look at everything that I build right now, like the benches. I built these horrible benches with the storage underneath. If you don't know about it, I actually cut it super wrong with a table saw or with a circular saw. Broke down on me middle of the way through. Basically, I needed to shave an inch off. I tried sanding the inch off of the thing. I should have used a hand plane. It took me hours.
How are your lungs feeling?
Did you really sand for an hour to get to the inch?
It was MDF.
I thought that was the tool for the job. I thought...
If only you knew someone.
If only I had asked him. Well, and the funny thing is, I was talking to my dad through the whole process of like...
He didn't tell me that story.
I went to Home Depot. I bought the wood. I was like, all of this wood is horribly warped. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. He's like, well, yeah, wood gets warped sometimes. And, but he's like, find the straight pieces, do what you can with it. Figured it out. I made it straight. It's level. It's great. But I didn't know what I was doing. I look back at that bench and I think, hey, I built that. Like, that's cool. It's good. I don't look at it as it's a masterpiece, but I'm proud of what I've built, and I know there are things that I can be working on that I can improve this time. But if I go build 80 of those, I'm changing everything about what I'm going to do, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to have the right tools. I'm going to a lumber yard. There's a lot of differences that I'm going to do in what I do next time. But if I've been doing a bunch over and over and over again, there is going to reach a point where I go, yep, I've got it perfect. I'm not dialing things in anymore. Yeah, I'm bored with it. And I think that's the point where I go explore. I'm no longer a bench maker only. Maybe I'm, adding engravings, doing different things that raises the quality of craft.
Well, I like that you said that when you stand back and look at something, if you're not like happy about it anymore. Maybe it's time to find something else, and that not a new career, but a new path.
Yeah, or just figure out how to up your game, right?
Yeah.
And so, when you think about, I'm thinking about the carpenters and craftsmen out there. Okay, they're in your world that you were in. What are some other paths you could have taken or could have jumped to?
Yeah. So one other path I could have taken was stay in that world and realize like you're not ever going to really do anything cool or exciting. It's just going to be the same repetitive stuff. But you can bring on more guys, buy some vans, and then you can make money that way. So if we're talking about making money, yeah, there's an opportunity there to, make a profit in that. I know I've met trim guys at some of those houses. Like what we do where we go and do these upgrades to these houses, what I used to do, it's in new construction neighborhoods. Like people will be like, hey, we just had this house built. They didn't do what we wanted. Yeah. And we want to do this now. Yeah. So while I'm out there working, there's other trim guys driving up and down the street. Right. Some of them would stop and see like, hey, I saw your videos. Like it was pretty cool. Yeah. But yeah, those guys in those positions, if I know what they're doing because I was right there with them, they're doing the same base, same casing, same doors. Like if they're tired of that, like they just need to realize there's another world. But the world that they're in, their boss above them has 10 vans and he's got all these guys running around doing basic tasks and their boss is making good money. So if we're talking about making money, that is a route.
But on top of that, like if I know we talked about it previously, like whether or not you are more inclined to, the homework route or the hands-on route, that upgrade, that change for you, Richard, to go from being the guy installing to the guy overseeing the vans of guys going and installing, that's a change in, it still is a pond hop, right? You're moving from the boots on the ground doing that work to now doing administrative work, organizing, making calls, and figuring out where each scheduled van is going to go. And so it is a hop. It's just in a different direction, so...
It's not a craft hop, but it's a business skill hop.
Yeah. So I think, is that what you're asking? Like, what other ways I could have went?
I'm just curious if you saw other avenues for yourself that you could have done. And that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. I didn't know whether you looked at the commercial world and thought I could do something there. I didn't know if you looked at, I talked to you about working for builders. I just didn't know.
That was it. I never looked at commercial. Have I even done a commercial? I don't think I've ever even done a commercial job.
You're not missing anything.
So I looked at, I could just keep doing what I'm doing. I looked at the thing I just talked about hiring more people. And then I also looked at working for builders, which I had worked for like one or two builders before coming on with you guys.
Well, and when I was telling you to do that, I was trying to be very careful because builders can be snakes, okay? And production builders especially can be really difficult. And so because all they care about is price.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just...
I already know what I would do.
They can hammer you and they can yell at you and they don't care, right? And so
you put all this work in, and they're like, "Oh, well, I don't have your payment." And I'm like, "Well, I'll be there in the morning with the pry bar. I need all my stuff back."
I'll see you in court.
So that's why I was giving you the names of those builders because I was just like, I want you to work for honest guys. I want you to work for guys who will pay for it, who won't gonna, leave you high and dry. And so anyway.
Well, and one thing I just want to speak to in this process, I know we're talking about finding mentors, we're talking about finding fellow builders and just making those hops. One of my desires, and I'm a dreamer, so forgive me if this sounds big, but when you join in with the Patreon, when you join in our Discord server, we want to provide an opportunity for connections across, the platforms that Richard's built, the platforms that Brent's built, and not just between the two, but just people in the industry as a whole. We want to have the Discord just to be a place where people can come in and meet other like-minded builders who have this passion for craft, which is what we keep talking about, because that's an important thing. It's a valuable thing in our world that we are seeing, that all three of us have seen that we are losing in the building world especially, but I mean it trends over into other areas as well. And there's obviously the standalone, the shining stars out there.
Maybe there should be a mentor tag in there.
We can definitely do that.
A mentorship. And so
I thought that's where you were going with that. Yeah,
I happily, but definitely that is. I mean, if you're sitting here and you're listening on YouTube, we really appreciate the viewership. But just know we're trying to provide more. We're trying to provide more than just a podcast. We want to provide a community, and that is found on the Discord, which is through the Patreon. So
does that make sense? Like if I laid out that thing, making money, what kind of business you build? I'm talking. My things are like, don't get stuck in a rut. Find a mentor. How do you get out of those traffic jams you're in and start building better in a culture? Because there are people that care about craft. I think the last thing I would say on this topic is that the last piece of that is find a patron. And a patron is not necessarily some rich person who's got a bottomless checkbook. But someone like I had a client very early on in my career who hired me to fix up their house. And I was doing screen repairs. I was doing things that just needed to be done on a great historic house. And they didn't have a lot of money, but they were patrons because they were passionate about me and passionate about that I loved their house and that there was a kindred spirit in that way. And they wanted to help me any way they could. They were telling their friends about me. And so it wasn't I probably did, $15,000 worth of work at their house over a 6-month period. So you don't make a career with those people, but they were patrons still, and they were helping me out. So the third piece of this thing would be find a patron, right? Find a mentor, find a patron. Don't get stuck in a rut, because you can grow as a craftsman and expand your universe and get better.
So answering the question for you, Brent, you've got 3 things. Can you walk us through them one more time?
Don't get stuck in a rut.
Okay, don't get stuck in a rut. When it's time to hop ponds, you figure that out, and it's time to go.
Yes, and so if you're at that point in your career where you're like, I really need to go try something else, or I'm bored, or you're starting to get in arguments with things that are going on.
When you stop saying wow at the things you built.
Thank you. You're in a rut, and you need to get out. And trust me, Richard didn't know he was in a rut until he got out of it and goes, yeah, I was really in a rut. And so, it takes someone from the outside looking at you going, what? And you're like, wait, what am I?
So that leads into step 2, which is?
It's two and 3 are the same. One's find a mentor in the business world that you're living in and can
potentially
help you.
A person who can say, you're in a rut.
Yeah, potentially someone who can also say, here's a job you should be trying, right? And then that other thing is finding that patron who sees your passion, sees your skill, and wants to help you out. And you can ask those people, you can ask those patrons, those clients, you are being vulnerable, but you're saying, hey, will you critique me? Will you tell me, how I can get better? What am I doing? What do you like? Why are you hiring me? Why are you being nice to me? What's going on here, so that you can understand how you fit in the market and what those opportunities are.
Well, that's awesome. And Richard, you kind of front-loaded this question as a whole with I feel like a really great laid out answer. And so as you see this, how would you answer this question?
So the question being like how to make money as a craftsman.
Yeah, how do you make money in a culture where craft doesn't matter?
I think, like what I said in the beginning, the education part of it, and you really told me this, like going back to when we first met, like, why are you doing these things? Like, these, you need to educate the client. Whereas I always came at it from a perspective of like, well, they know what they want. Just tell me and I'll do it. And like, that's not really the case. They only know what they've seen.
Correct.
Like, they don't really know what's available.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So like for me to go in, like, then another friend of mine told me, we were talking about pricing, and I was like, he's like, well, he didn't ask me any numbers specifically. He was like, how busy are you? I'm like, so busy. He's like, what percentage of the quotes that you give say yes? Like, you give them a bid, $1,000, whatever it is, and they say, yeah, we'll do it. I was like, probably like 99%. He's like, that's really bad. I'm like, bad? He's like, you need to have people saying no to your prices, because you're cheap, you're too low. And I was like, but I want to get the job. Like, I don't want to lose this client or whatever, but he's like, no, just try it out. So I did try it out. I started pricing jobs higher, and they started not accepting it. Yeah. But I had this one wainscot job. It was like something I would have normally charged like $3,500 for. I was like, I don't know. Is it worth anymore? So I just said, you know what? I'm just going to double it. I sent it for 7,000 and they were like, when can you start? And I was like, right now? No,
that's like a movie moment, right?
Yeah.
Like
I was
where
just
you
like,
double your price and then you get it. That is so cool.
Yeah. And I was just like, what?
Well, you could also be kicking yourself at that point. You know, how much money have I left on the table?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I know.
You're just
yeah.
like, gosh, all this time I've been sitting there, you know, I haven't been charging enough.
Yeah. And in that specific client, she was one that I did exactly what you said. I would like she wanted to do a wainscot in the dining room. And I was like talking to her about balance and in proportion of things. And like, it was just cool. Like I knew, like I used to just be like the trim kid who just get, oh, what do you want to do? Okay, I'll do it. Now I'm almost like, when I go into these places, I have authority.
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, this is how this can be. It could be this way too, but here's why you'd want to. Like,
I would argue you got double the money because you were the authority, right? You weren't the trim kid.
Yeah, exactly. Like I just presented myself in a whole new way, which opened up doors for me that were previously shut. And the other thing is what I said in the beginning too. People want to see what you do. You know, the old school way is having a portfolio you carry around, but now that's like Instagram and YouTube.
Yeah.
And I would say even a real portfolio would be impressive because we're all staring at our phones all day. It's like, what's another picture? You know, if you come with some like, maybe even an iPad like this, show them like a big screen or like actual
nicely made binder
pictures. Like, and I do that. I show people like, so this is really cool what we did here. I have an advantage too, because I'll send them a video and be like, look, we did this. And they're seeing it like, wow, like, well, yeah, like this is awesome. That's just me making myself more valuable.
Right.
You know, I'm no different than the guy who doesn't have a YouTube channel. But the thing is, people can watch me physically do it, you know? So that's where I'm kind of making myself a little bit more out there. But I will say this, the one thing I miss about working for those homeowners is the AC. The bathroom was a bathroom, not a porta potty, and they did buy us food and tip us and stuff. But those days are gone.
Totally.
But no, I'm just kidding. No,
hey, the perks of the job, man.
Yeah. No, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And one, I guess the last thing would be actually, wherever you are at in this process, don't be discouraged. You know, if you're still in the small pond, like, you know, enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a process. You got to develop the skills and the experience and find the mentors, and then you'll know like when it's time to take the next step.
Yeah. And I would love you guys to counter me on this if this is not true, but I would even say if you are in that small pond and you've been in that small pond for 10 years and you're like, man, I'm still stepping back from the work that I'm doing and saying, wow, this is awesome. Then stay there, enjoy it. Know that you might be able to grow if you're doing things fast and you're moving well. But if you're enjoying what you're doing and you are getting fairly compensated for it, like that's awesome. Enjoy your specialization. There are many artists out there that are specialized in one thing that aren't, you know.
Not everybody has to do the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you guys agree with that?
I do agree with that. I remember reading a book about Sam Maloof, who's a furniture chair maker, very famous in California.
Yeah.
And he was building the same rocking chair over and over again for like 30 years. And he was so zen about it. He was just like, you know, every chair tells me a different story. Every piece of wood tells me a different story. Now, he was building a very complicated chair, and the skill level was really high. But I remember reading that book going, he built the same damn chair for 30 years. It's like I would have shot myself, right?
Was it a certain type of wood that he was using that had some?
He used different
some
woods
psychedelic
and
quality.
stuff.
Sorry.
It was.
Those chairs are beautiful, by the way.
They are beautiful. So I'm only saying that because I agree. I think if you're doing something that you know can still find value in, day out, there's no reason to change.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think that's the majority of carpenters out there, though.
Yeah.
I think the general consensus is that we see a higher calling, and we're all like, most of us are reaching for it.
Yeah. Well, I think that was a really well answered question. I think you guys both just made it really clear how to make money in a culture that doesn't care about craft. And it looks like a lot of it is education on the front end of educating people and sharing why. But I do want to ask, because mentors were brought up, as just kind of like a final closing question. Don't have to elaborate on it too much, but would definitely be curious to hear who are some of the ideal craftsmen that you guys look up to, maybe dead and alive. So you kind of have two craftsmen to look up to from an alive standpoint as well as from a dead standpoint. Because I know you'll pull out some old timey name from the 1700s. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's some master builders from the past that were my model for building. Asher Benjamin, William Buckland, Samuel McIntyre, all pre-1820 builders who built, crafted, designed, and did it all, and were very proficient at it. And they're writing books about it. They were the Abner Buckners of an earlier generation. Today, craftsmen I admire. I mean, David White at our shop, I think, is a master craftsman. I think he's great. There's a guy I learned from. He wasn't necessarily a great craftsman, but he was a great craftsman. He's not alive anymore. I'm so old that all the people I admired are dead.
Hey, that's great.
And so Kenny Hayes, who was one of my first employees, taught me how to be efficient, taught me how to think about work, taught me how to appreciate craft. Mm-hmm. And so, and he wasn't necessarily a great craftsman, but his approach to work was, getting tools ready in the morning, thinking about the tools he was going to need the next day, being, proactive instead of reactive to design, and it's just cleanliness and the way he took care of his tools. It was just
cool.
It was really cool.
Thanks, Richard.
So I don't really know any old guys like that, but
it's all good. That was partly for him. Part of the question. I thought I'd like to hear some live peeps.
Yeah. So obviously Brent is an inspiration and a mentor. Some of the craftsmen that I look at are guys from the shop as well. Like I've been on a couple tours of the shop, and I just see them, and it's really inspiring to see what they can put together. Mm-hmm. So I don't really have any names specifically.
Yeah.
I kind of look at the guys doing stuff on jobs and look at those and say, like, just that I'm inspired by it,
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess Brent.
That's great.
He's still alive.
He is. Yeah. Barely. No, barely. I think one of the guys I look up to alive, obviously Brent, but I don't want to take the cop-out answer, right? No, I'm just kidding. But Vossel, I think, is a craftsman that I look at who's alive, who is just a freak of nature. And I mean that in the best of ways. I know translation errors might occur if he's trying to listen to this in Ukrainian, but I mean, he's a beautiful craftsman. I'm sorry, I don't know, it's so funny, but just listening to it. Yeah, if he's trying to, this guy's a freak of nature. Yeah, no, that would not be but I mean it positively. He is. I
forgot about him. That's a good answer. He has carved
some master works that are really, really cool. Who's that one production builder that I really like, Dad? No, I'm kidding. That's obviously not any production builders. And then in the olden days, I don't know any dead guys either. So,
one I do actually forgot to mention. Brent already mentioned him too earlier. Gary Katz. Yeah, Gary Katz. He made a lot of. He's like the original video guy for how to make how-to videos on trim. Awesome. I forgot about him, even though you just mentioned him.
Yeah,
yeah, he's a great teacher. Yeah, very knowledgeable. Yeah, he's good.
That's really cool. Well, sweet, guys. Thanks for listening to our podcast. Again, I know we mentioned it earlier, but our this experience is catered for the Patreon. We love that you're listening on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If that's where you consume your content, that's amazing. And feel free to enjoy the free stuff. We want to put this out there because we have a passion for craft and we want people to hear about it. But we are catering an experience for you guys on Patreon, and a lot of that experience is the community that we're hoping to foster there, and already are fostering there. And so would love to hear feedback from you guys there. That's kind of the first place we look for questions and for interaction with these guys, these masters of the craft, and really just appreciate you guys listening in. So thanks for listening.